Thank you. Can I call on Mr Ben Smith then, please?
Thank you, presiding member. And first of all, an apology. I was a bit trigger happy putting my hand up previously, and I didn't give due respect to the group leaders who wish to speak. So please accept my profuse apologies for that. A reminder that because the three amendments have not passed, we are back to the substantive original motion. But you did take my officer technical advice that there would be an adjustment for the late revenue support grant. So there are no changes to the two recommendations on the substantive original motion, but effectively you are noting my advice, which is there's an additional £52,000 of revenue support grant, which I need to then expense by putting £52,000 into the contingency fund, which is technically done by drawing down less from reserves. The figure is £52,000. You do not need to see it on the screen because it doesn't change the substantive recommendations. The exact number is £51,913, and I will come on and give you strict technical advice for the statutory resolution, which must be recorded to the pound and penny as correct. So for the avoidance of doubt, you are now back to the original, but technically amended for that £52,000. That's what I wish to come in and give advice on, presiding member. Thank you.
Mr Smith.
Chair, very brief, just to move the report with the technical adjustment that Mr Smith has just appraised us of.
You can have a seconder, please.
I'll be the second with the amendments.
Okay.
And Chair, I'd like to call a name vote, please.
Just say you can see the recommendation on
Yeah.
page 14. That's what we're going to name vote.
Two hands up. I got Councillor Alison Pugh. Is there a question?
No, sorry, I was just putting my hand up for the name vote thing.
All right.
Okay, like usual, I will read your name out, and if you can say whether you're for, against, or abstain, and I will record it accordingly. Please use your mic if you're in the room so everyone can hear what is being said. Councillor Cyril Anderson. For. Councillor Matthew Bailey.
Abstain.
Councillor Sam Bennett.
Abstain.
Councillor Patience Bento.
For.
Councillor Peter Black.
Abstain.
Councillor Jan Curtis.
For.
Councillor Adam Davis.
For.
I'm going to do away with the councillor title, so forgive me for that. Mike Day. Phil Downing.
For.
Ryland Doyle.
For.
Mike Dirk.
For.
Kerry Evans. Chris Evans.
Abstain.
Mandy Evans.
For.
Wendy Fitzgerald. She's gone. Okay. Rebecca Fogarty.
For.
Robert Francis Davis.
For.
Nicola Furlong. Louise Gibbard.
For.
Fiona Gordon.
For.
Kevin Griffiths. Hayley Gwilliam.
For.
Joe Hale.
For.
Terry Hennigan.
For.
Victoria Holland.
For.
Chris Holly.
Abstain.
Paxton Hood Williams.
Against.
Beverly Hopkins. David Hopkins.
For.
Linda James.
Abstain.
Oliver James. Yvonne Jardine.
For.
Alan Jeffrey.
Abstain.
Di Jenkins.
For.
Jeff Jones.
Abstain.
Lyndon Jones.
Abstain.
Mary Jones.
Abstain.
Matthew Jones.
4.
Susan Jones. Sandra Joy. Sarah Keaton.
4.
Elliot King.
4.
Erica Kirshner.
4.
Hannah Lawson.
4.
Andrea Lewis.
4.
Mike Lewis. Richard Lewis. Wendy Lewis. Paul Lloyd.
4.
Michael Locke.
Abstain.
Nicola Matthews.
4.
Henny Matthews.
4.
Peter May. James McKettrick.
Abstain.
Hazel Morris. Francesca O'Brien. Angela O'Connor. David Phillips.
4.
Cheryl Philpott.
Abstain.
Jess Pritchard.
4.
Sam Pritchard.
4.
Alison Pugh.
4.
Stuart Rice.
Abstain.
Kelly Roberts.
4.
Bridget Rowlands.
Abstain.
Robert Smith.
4.
Andrew Stevens.
4.
Rob Stewart.
4.
Graham Thomas.
Abstain.
Will Thomas.
Against.
Mark Tribe.
Abstain.
Gordon Walker. Leslie Walton.
4.
Mike White.
4.
Andrew Williams.
4.
Okay, that gives me 42 councillors for, 6 against and 19 abstentions. So the vote is carried.
Okay, thank you. We now move on to item 10, and that's the housing revenue account of the revenue budget for 23-24, and I believe it's Ben. Mr. Smith, are you speaking on this, please?
Yes, please. Thank you, presiding member. So this is the housing revenue account. A reminder, ultra ring fenced. All decisions must be taken entirely separately from the decisions you've just been taking on the general fund. One recommendation on page 117. The only technical advice I need to give you is to draw your attention to page 119, and then I'll defer to the relevant cabinet member. The table set out in section 4.1.5. The additional income arising from the already agreed 6.5% rent increase, which has been decision taken and notified, and you will see a raft of spending items on predominantly revenue repairs, some additional contributions to capital. Staff costs in the HRA go up in the same way as they do in the general fund. The clear message is that overall the amount being spent is more than is being raised in that additional income. So it is compensated for by a transfer from reserves. That transfer from reserves is because there's an anticipated add to reserves in 22-23, so it is right and proper that it is considered to be given back in 23-24. For the avoidance of doubt, I am again certifying that I am satisfied that the budget is lawful for the HRA and that the level of reserves retained in the HRA is adequate and sufficient for all purposes I expect it to be. I have no further technical advice to give on this report. Thank you, presiding member.
Can I call on Councillor Lewison, please?
Thank you, presiding member, and thank you to Mr. Smith. Just to highlight just a few things in this report. So it's referenced in 2.1 regarding rent arrears. Pleased to say at this point, rent arrears have not increased as we anticipated. So they're hovering around the 3 million mark at the moment. However, as you will see in 2.2, we do need to plan and make sure that we're ready just in case those rent arrears increase. But I'm confident that the bad debt provision in the report is sufficient and set at a current level to deal with that. 2.2 refers to some overspends that Mr. Smith referred to, which are outlined in 4.1.5 in terms of shifts and changes in the 22-23 budget. Some of those are as a result of a backlog of maintenance and repairs. And as I'm sure members will appreciate, our building services took the right decision during the pandemic to make sure that they weren't going into people's properties and putting people at risk of COVID unless absolutely necessary. This impact has caused a backlog in the maintenance and repairs. And now that we've returned to that, there's been a shift in spend, which has been higher than anticipated. In addition to that, we are very much focused on day-to-day voids, and Cabinet approved a report recently where we've expanded the framework. So we've got more contractors on that framework to help tackle voids, and they will be coming online shortly in the next 3 to 4 weeks. So I'm confident that we will be hitting those voids very hard to bring them back into use, because obviously we're all aware of the waiting lists and the huge demand for social housing that we're seeing across Swansea. And in addition to that, a further 1.15 million increase, and that's due to the new legislation in terms of the changes in terms of electricity repairs and checks. So this was every 10 years and it's now reduced to every 5 years, which has had an impact on resources. So you'll see the changes mentioned in 4.1.5. In 4.1.6, as Mr. Smith referred to, income is expected to exceed expenditure next year by £25.5 million, and this will be reinvested into our capital programme, which is over £50 million next year. And I will say more about that when we come to that capital report. And reserves are outlined in Table B of the report, and the spend summarised for the revenue account in Table A. Happy to move the report, presiding member, and more than happy to take any questions should members have them.
Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Stewart. Questions from anybody? Any online trace? No. No. Okay, the report is moved, so I'm going to go to the vote. So all in favour of the report? Okay, online, if you can take your hands down, please, and go to any abstentions. None, so that's carried. Okay, thank you. Move on to the next item, and that's the statutory resolution. No, it's not, it's capital budget. Sorry, you jumped one. Capital budget, sorry. Matthew, you coming in, please?
I am indeed. Thank you, presiding member. So by way of technical advice on this one, before I start, the first bit of technical advice is I am conscious there is an amendment tabled. I must remind members that the item that is being debated in due course is an item that was originally added into the capital programme in 22-23 by way of an FPR7 report to Cabinet, but it was an exempt item. So I do not wish to stifle discussion or debate in the council chamber, but I must remind that the bulk of the decision was an exempt item. In terms of technical advice on the report itself, page 127, there is the one recommendation for a raft of proposals in the various appendices. So I draw your attention to that. I then draw your attention to page 133 next and 2.6.3, which reminds that there is still a substantial forecast capital financing requirement over £100 million, and that is stating the obvious significant. On page 134 in section 3.2, just to remind you that all of these reports stitch back together. There is £50 million of borrowing expected to be assumed in the MTFP, expected to be financed ultimately through revenue, but at the moment is not included. These schemes will be added by further future FPR7 reports to Cabinet in due course for the reasons I've already indicated throughout the discussion and debate today. I draw your attention next to page 137, just to take your eye to the sort of bottom right-hand corner of the page, but the bit at the top, just shy of £400 million worth of total capital programme over the years in view. And on page 138, how that just shy of £400 million is financed. So I have no further technical advice to give on this report. Thank you, Presiding Member.
Thank you. Any technical questions for Mr Smith, please? Paxton Hood Williams.
Sorry, Madam Presiding Member, I hadn't taken my hand down.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Oh, sorry, Stuart. Sorry, I am.
Just one quick technical question. Can Ben confirm how much is being spent exactly in the Directorate of Education on the repair and renewal of schools in the year forecast ahead?
I can't answer that immediately because I'm scrolling through my pages and they're a bit stuck at the moment. But if I fail to give an answer by the time we're finished, I will give you a written answer on that, if that's okay, Councillor Rice.
Okay, if there are no more questions, I'm going to go. We've got a proposer and I need a proposer, sorry, and a seconder.
Chair, happy to move.
Thank you. Seconder.
Happy to second.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
Debate.
Sorry, there is an amendment. Sorry.
So allowed debate and print.
Yeah.
Group.
Okay, it's from the group. Sorry, I'm going to say.
Men's group.
It's the upland group. Sorry, it's an amendment. Sorry, Stuart.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's quite a simple amendment, and I am quite limited by what I can say in reference to the things that I'm suggesting removal for. But as you can see on the amendment, the city centre acquisition, which is mentioned at 2.825 million on page 140. My proposal is that we remove that and replace it with a new school energy efficiency and air quality improvement programme. And the reasons I'm suggesting that is that I believe this is a stronger priority than the city centre acquisition, which has been mentioned and obviously is in exempt papers. In terms of school energy efficiency, we've put aside around £6 million in the budget this year to help with additional school energy costs. I think it's well worth putting some capital aside to deal with school energy efficiency in the year ahead. Not only because it will help protect people going forward in terms of schools, in terms of costs and the potential exposure they would have to rising costs, it's also the green thing to do. And it's a great way in which we can sell and put forward this idea of becoming more aware of energy efficiency to our children and to schools. Importantly as well, I think we need to make a provision for air quality improvement. We've obviously seen the articles and the news about air quality over the recent years and how important it is in terms of health. In the last year, the approximation is that there were between 28,000 and 36,000 excess deaths in the UK due to air quality pollution. And I think it's very important we start to address air quality around our schools, and there's some very simple and easy ways to do it. I believe this money could be spent quite quickly and would make a big difference. And it's for that reason that I'm proposing this. If, for example, in the future, somebody wanted to look again at the city centre acquisition, it's probably still going to be there. So I would move that we accept this amendment.
Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you.
Me to respond first, please, Chair. In terms of the amendment, I too am constrained, given that the information is contained on restricted papers. All I will say is that this potential spend and acquisition is a critical action for this authority. It would, if successful, leverage in significant additional funds, which would be lost if we did not go ahead. And again, in terms of the debate we had earlier around us all wanting to see a successful and vibrant city centre, where we've got an opportunity to make an acquisition which then draws in further significant sums, we take the opportunity to do that. I can't say specifically more than that at this point, other than to caution members that if you supported this amendment, we would lose that additional potential leverage sum. In addition to that, I'm sure Councillor Smith will say more, but there is already a programme very similar which is operating in schools, and obviously Councillor Lewis and Councillor Smith have been working on green energy elements, including improving air quality as part of our net zero aims for the council. And of course, that is a broad programme which includes work with our schools, but I'll leave Councillor Smith to say more on that. So for those reasons, Chair, one, it's already happening, and two, it would lose a significant amount of money and a significant opportunity. I cannot support the amendment.
Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Yes, just to come in specifically about the school energy efficiency, I can confirm that this Cabinet supported through the Economic Recovery Fund previously, which is still active in terms of the funding allocated to provide energy awareness across our schools through the Sparks project. Some of our schools have already benefited from this, and I'm not sure whether we have the figures to hand this evening in terms of how much, for example, Penrail Comprehensive have saved through that scheme, but I'm sure that can be provided in writing. In addition to that, our teams are also looking at the REFIT programme, which is a grant scheme that you place renewables on a building. So we're looking specifically at our community buildings, including schools. And what that will do then is the money that's saved through those renewable technologies will be used to repay the loan. So it's an excellent scheme, and it's something that we're looking to roll out as far and wide as we possibly can. We're certainly by no means not ignoring our schools. They remain a top priority for us.
Councillor Robert Smith.
Yes, thank you, President. I don't want to prolong this. You'll be glad to know, because Councillor Lewis has outlined the programme. This is work that's already in hand. Our schools are benefiting, and some have already completed the programme. Others are getting involved with it, both in terms of the survey and also in terms of the retrofit. So I think it's work we are happy to bring back and give further details in due course. Perhaps not tonight, Presiding Member.
Yeah. Mr. Smith, do you want to come back in with any comments, please?
No, Presiding Member, I'm happy that the item is lawful. I have heard comments made. It is a clear shootout in terms of policy choices. I have nothing further to add.
Okay, if there's no more speakers, I'm going to go back to Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Chair. Just to try and help with the figures involved, my understanding, if the Section 5151 officer can't give us information straight away, is that the proposals that I put forward almost double the amount being spent within the year, except for the 21st Century School programme on schools by the authority. And I recognise that we're already doing some of the things that are included in this programme, and I think that's a good thing. But let's do more. And this is an opportunity to do this. And I think that there's a much stronger case for this action than there is for the action of a city centre acquisition, which may not work out.
Okay, there's no more speakers. I'm going to move to the vote. No, yeah. We go into the amendment from the Uplands Group, and it is to remove the city centre acquisition and replace with school energy efficiency and air quality improvement programme 2.825 million, which is on page 140. So I can have a show of hands in support of the amendment, please. Anybody against? Abstentions? Okay. So that amendment has fallen. Okay. Okay, we go back to the substantive motion now. Councillor Lewis, you're going to speak, or is no?
Chair, nothing further to add to what I've said before, but formally move.
So Holly,
Thank you, President Member. I turn to page 134, item 3, future schemes. I think it's incredibly important that we understand what that paragraph second, the 3.2 says. Whilst everybody wishes to see further development, but we must be mindful of the fact that we have a substantial borrowing requirement, or we have a substantial borrowing now, and it has had an effect on our revenue. And I just hope that in future, if we borrow this money, that there will be the headroom in the revenue account to actually pay for it. But it's just a warning, and I think it's well said by the 151 officer.
yeah, the recommendation is on page 127. Can I have all those in? Yeah. Okay. Can you put your hands down online, please? Okay, all those against? Abstentions? Majority of 4, so that is moved. Okay. So we move on to the next item, which is item 12. No. 12. Sorry. Yeah. There's so many papers here now. I don't know where I'm going. Yes. Yeah, it's the housing revenue account. Sorry. Okay.
So that's
Mr.
me
Smith.
again, presiding
Yeah.
member. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah, 3 recommendations set out on page 149. A reminder again, this is ultra ring fenced. This is HRA only, to be funded by HRA. And I draw your attention to the bottom of page 156 and 157, which sets out the thick end of £270 million worth of spending on HRA capital and how it is to be financed. I have no further technical advice that I need to give. I think the report is self-contained. I'm happy to hand back to you, and I'm sure you'll then bring in Councillor Lewis. Thank you.
Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Just to take the opportunity to quickly just highlight some key points in this report. So the revised programme for the current year is 37 million or thereabouts, from an original budget of 58 million, due to various reasons for slippage. It has been a very difficult post-pandemic period in terms of building supply chains, and everybody's been impacted, which has caused some slippage in the programme. However, I am very proud to say that the revised More Home programme for this year includes an increased budget for the acquisition programme, and this administration, I'm proud to say, are buying back council right to buys and bringing them back into our stock, which is absolutely what we should be doing. And also to highlight the 2 schemes to convert the former district housing offices back into accommodation, using the Transitional Accommodation Capital Programme funding. This will obviously help us to alleviate the pressures on homelessness that we know we're seeing. The council has now reached Welsh Housing Quality Standard to the tune of about 70% of our properties, but members will see, particularly in the appendices, that we will continue to focus on the remaining 30% and try to bring those up to standards. There are many reasons for acceptable fails. Mostly it's because people didn't want us to carry out one element of Welsh Housing Quality Standard. For example, they might have improved and refurbished their own kitchen or bathroom and decided to refuse the works. That then counts as an acceptable fail. So when the properties become vacant, we will go in and bring those up to Welsh Housing Quality Standard. So that percentage will increase over the period. So the Welsh Housing Quality Standard element of the 4-year investment programme is also to maintain the properties which have gone through the process so that they remain compliant as well. So we continue to invest in our council homes. The decision has been taken as well to invest in solar panels and battery storage. And I'm really pleased to say that as part of our wind and weatherproofing programme, we've added those on over the coming 4-year term. We've got a pilot at the moment of 12 properties in Gansulcht. But just to read out the list quickly, presiding member, 12 properties in Craigkevin Park, 9 properties in Velindre, 232 in West Cross, 334 in Sketty Park, 102 in Penrail, or if you're local, Penrowell. 75 in Garden City, Forest Park, 33 in Trallwine, 214 in Wynaloedd, 67 in Community Cairo, 74 in Morriston, and 69 properties in Clydach. So we will continue on this journey, but as I've mentioned in previous meetings, we do need substantial Welsh Government support and funding to bring all our council homes up to the net zero standard, which could be as substantial as around £750 million. So not an insignificant sum. So just to draw members' attention to the appendices and just to give an outline of what those figures mean, because they're just numbers on a page. So I would like to highlight the approximate amount of properties. So this is not an exact science, but approximately. Wind and weatherproofing, we will see 1,200 properties improved. Roofing, 400 properties. Windows, doors and general repairs, 540 properties. Fire safety, 4,600 properties. Electrical improvements, 3,770 properties. Heating systems, 3,100. Energy efficiency and grant support, 450. Kitchens and bathrooms, 980. And the list goes on. And we continue to invest 3.4 million over the 4-year period in council house disabled adaptations. And just to finish on a high note, I'm really pleased that last night during the CIBSA, that's the Chartered Institution of Building Services Engineers Awards last night, that Welsh School of Architecture, due to the 6 bungalows in West Cross, took away 2 awards for Best Collaboration and Best Project of the Year. And we will be entertaining shortly next week, Constructing Excellence and aiming for an award through the West Cross scheme with Constructing Excellence. So well done to Housing and Building Services. They're doing an outstanding job. And of course, in addition to that, we've got a very proud track record of bringing on our local apprenticeship schemes, as you mentioned, the awards in your announcements, presiding member. So I'm very happy to move the report. Oh, sorry, one more thing from me. And I must flag up that we've got 270 million pounds worth of investment over the next 4 years, and 204.5 million is in our existing homes, and an additional sorry, I can't see it because my glasses, 65.8 million in new homes and acquisitions. So we haven't forgotten our council tenants. We're very much focused on bringing our existing homes up to an acceptable standard, because everybody deserves to live in a warm, safe, comfortable home. So that our tenants are very important to us, presiding member. So happy to take any questions.
For the report first, please.
Happy to second.
Okay. Questions to Councillor Lewis, please. Any online? No, none. Councillor Rice.
You might be surprised by about what I'm about to say, but I think there's some really good work being done here. And you know, there's been some excellent things, especially with the work that you're doing with solar panels. I know what you're doing in Penderry and a number of other areas across the city. And, you know, you've got to be congratulated when good things happen. I wish we had the same opportunity when we were back in power to do that. Unfortunately, at the time, the administration in Cardiff were absolutely determined to get us to try and asset transfer all the council stock. They were successful in getting a number of their local authorities to do that. But luckily, I think, and I look to Councillor Hennigan across the way, because we used to be on the shadow board of something called Towie Housing, where we were being forced and told constantly that to get more money in, we had to go outside. And Terry and his team voted against it. I got, I think, about 70% or something around that against it. And you know, you guys are now reaping the benefits of it being in-house. I wish we had the same available finances, the same powers available to us when we were in office, because you can see what good things can be done with it when you've got the powers available to you.
Councillor Wright, I'm totally confused. I was never aware that the Uplands Party have ever been in power.
Wasn't aware the Uplands Party had been.
Lewis.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I know the leader wishes to come in as well, but just from my perspective, I would like to add, this was no happy accident that we are investing in our council homes. This council, this administration chose to buy ourselves out of the housing rent subsidy so that we could bring all the council rents into a pot and reinvest that money back into our council homes. And this was something that was done by choice, not by accident, but I take the compliments. I always like compliments, Presiding Member, so thank you for those.
Councillor Stewart.
Yeah, I think Councillor Rice has done a good job of rewriting history and being strong-armed by the Welsh Government into being forced to get tenants to accept a different model. It was, in fact, as Councillor Rice referenced, Councillor Hennigan and the tenants, backed by the Labour group at that point in time, that ran a long campaign to stop the administration at the time privatising housing and placing that in. And it was absolutely the right decision. That was one of the biggest battles we've ever won, because now it has laid the groundwork for what Councillor Lewis and this administration have been able to do in terms of investing in council tenants' homes.
I've got to say congratulations, but at the end of the day, it was the Labour minister that was strong arm in it.
Okay.
Rewrite history, Rob, please.
Okay, the report has been moved and seconded, please. So I'm going to go to the vote. So the recommendations are on page 149. So if I can have those in favour of the report, please, show of hands. Okay. Anybody against? Can you take your hands down online, the ones that we're voting for, please? Okay. None against. Any abstentions? Okay, that report is moved. Thank you very much. We move on to item 13 then, and that's statutory resolutions to be made in accordance with the regulations in the setting of council tax 23/24. And it's Ben. Okay, Ben, it's the Ben Smith show tonight.
Thank you, Presiding Member. And hopefully you can see my screen as I'm speaking. I can't see you, but I hope you can see my screen. So we're back to the statutory resolution, which is the comedically long worded resolution that you are voting on in full, or being asked to vote on in full. And as a consequence of my technical adjustment, but otherwise reverting to the statutory position, I did give you advice that it needed to change by 52,000 in the revenue budget. But when we get to this, it needs to work to the pound. So the technical adjustment was £51,913. For the avoidance of doubt, so that you know what you are being asked to vote on, I display on screen the changes. So the first item, which is the expensed amount, has gone up by £51,913, which is being added into contingency. Item C is the difference of A and B, so also goes up by £51,913. Item D is the one that receives the revenue support grant, and as I indicated in the final light settlement of Tuesday night, it went up by £51,913. Once we go below that point, the next calculation is the difference of the two above, so everything comes back neutralised, so we're back to it balances, nothing then moves on any of the other pennies, and the whole of the rest of the report stands as is. For the avoidance of doubt, I will share a copy once you have made your decision with Mr. Evans, to ensure that there is a accurate record of what you're being asked to vote on. That's the only technical advice I need to give on this item. Thank you, Presiding Member.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. I need a proposer and a seconder, please.
Happy to move, Chair.
Have a seconder?
Happy to second.
Thank you. Okay, the recommendations are that we go to the substantive motion, yeah? It's on page 179.
Subject to those.
Yeah, subject to the amendments, yeah, okay. So all those in favour? Okay. You take your hands down online then before I go to the against. Okay, anybody against? Any abstentions? Okay, it's carried. Okay, thank you very much. The next item is the Treasury Management Strategy, Investment Strategy and the Minimum Revenue Provision Policy Statement for 23-24, the Interim Year Report 22-23 and the Annual Report 21-22. And that's again is Mr. Smith. Thank you.
Thank you, presiding member. Just when you thought it was all over, then comes the really fun report at this time of evening, which is the longest report ever. Recommendations, 5 recommendations. I could talk at great length on this item. I would love to talk at great length on this item. I'm sure you've all got better things to do. It's important because it is so complicated. This is where, if you get it wrong, things blow up badly as a local authority and you end up running out of cash. This report, if you read in the round, is quite clear. We have got large pockets of cash. We have financed our borrowing at record low rates. And we are well within all prudent measures, and I am satisfied as a section 151. So I'm cutting to the chase and not going through line by line by line. I did just want to draw attention to one item in particular. It was referenced earlier by the leader, and I wish to reference it, which is on page 191, which is the average pool rate is now down to 3.55%. As well as the pension fund being fully funded and being quite pleased that we did borrow at record low rates, that is no mean feat. The interest rate was 6% when I took over as Section 151 officer. We managed to get it down below 4. The previous year I managed to get it down to 3.75, and notwithstanding there have been 10 base rate increases, it's now down to 3.55%. It's the reason why I've given advice throughout all the reports that I do not want to borrow any more money for as long as possible, because I do not want to borrow at current rates, which are nearer 5%, not the record 1.8, 1.9% we achieved. But I'm incredibly grateful and thankful to my Treasury management team who have assisted me in getting to that position. And this, along with all of the other matters we've done, have done an incredible amount of the heavy lifting. You've had horrible decisions to make today and all the stuff that's been talked about, but it's these technical things that, if they're done well and safely, provide an awful lot of the heavy lifting for the authority. So I won't go into any greater detail than that because the hour is late, but there are 5 recommendations, and I just ask that you note how low we've got that borrowing rate. There is reference also in that to the matter that Councillor Lewis referenced, which is there is a slightly separate rate for the HRA buyout, which is also referenced in the report. But unless anyone's desperate to delve into the bowels of thousands of pages of numbers, I will stop and hand back to you, presiding member. Thank you.
Any questions for Ben? So
No, about 25 technical questions, but I'll leave them go for tonight. No, I just wanted to quickly, just quickly wanted to again to thank Mr. Smith and his team for the work that they've done, and specifically, it is an important thing that they've got that average borrowing rate down to 3.55%. That is a real achievement. So congratulations on that. But formally move, Chair.
Give a seconder then, please.
Happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, the recommendations are on page 184. I'm going to take them all as one. So those in favour of the report, please. Okay, if you can take your hands down online, please. Anybody against? And any abstentions? Okay, that report is moved and thank you. We move on to item 15, and that's the capital strategy 22, 23, 27, 28. And again, it's over to you, Mr. Smith, please.
Thank you, presiding member. I can be really brief on this one. This is the report that's all the words that go with all the numbers beforehand. They're meant to be read in conjunction with the preceding report. There is only one recommendation. I don't need to give any technical advice on the words, and you will be pleased to know that when I hand back to you in a nanosecond, I believe that's the last thing I need to give technical advice on, and then we are incredibly close to nearly half time on today's proceedings. So I have no further technical advice to give. Thank you, presiding member.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Smith. Any questions? So can I have a
Happy to formally move.
Can I have a seconder, please?
Happy to second.
Thank you. The recommendation is on page 247. So can I have a show of hands for, please? Anybody against? Any abstentions? Okay. Okay, we now move on to the annual review of performance 21-22, and it's Councillor David Hopkins.
Thanks, presiding member. I don't intend to go through this report in any depth, probably about 20-30 minutes, probably. No, I got no intention to go through it. What I would like to say is to thank Richard Rowlands, obviously, for the good work he continues to do. This review has already gone through scrutiny and audit committee. I'm more than happy to take any questions, but I'm happy to move the report at this particular time.
Happy to second.
Thank you. Councillor Stevens, did you put your hand up to speak, or was it just?
No, I did actually want to say something, to be honest.
Okay.
Yes, thank you, presiding member. Thank you, Councillor Hopkins, and your officers for such an in-depth report. Even though it's looking back, it's good to reflect on what's been achieved. Just like the leader reflected on what had not been achieved by the Lib Dem independent. There are many excellent case studies in the report, and I won't go into all the ones that I was actually going to go into, but I did want to reference one. I'm proud that my local rugby club, Loughra FC, actually took part in the Swansea Men CAN initiative on White Ribbon Day to raise awareness of domestic abuse, a national campaign to tackle male violence against women. And I want to thank my colleague sitting next to me, Councillor Louise Gibbard, and the officers and the team for all the outstanding work they did on the campaign and for inviting me and Loughra FC to be part of the awareness on such an important issue. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, the report has been moved and seconded. Yep. Okay, we move to the vote then, please, and the recommendations are on page 263. Can I have a vote for? Anybody against? And any abstentions? Okay, that's moved. Next item is item 17, and that's Swansea Local Development Plan, the LDP review and replacement. David, Councillor Hopkins.
Thanks, presiding member. This is very much a technical report. We have had a presentation that via Tom Evans prior to this meeting. I know we had some technical issues at that time, but I would say this report sets us where we are, where we've been. It's been a difficult 4 years. It just seems like the other day that we sat in this chamber 4 years ago in February. It was actually February that actually looking and accepting this report. Then the last 4 years have been probably the most difficult this authority you've ever seen, in the way of COVID and all the financial strains and revelations that's been going on. But what I would say, I think this report itself, right, I'd like to highlight that this LDP was a groundbreaking and recognised by the Royal Town of Planning Institute for Welsh Government for its bold placemaking approach. And no doubt it's been a key document in helping delivering the placemaking and development agenda for this authority. I'm very proud of where we've been. It's been very difficult times, but I would say there are some shortcomings within the report, but being where we are, and we look at the rest of Wales, I think they're quite envious of some of the things that we have achieved during that time. I'm not going to harp on too long about it. I've got, I know I'm going to have probably many questions on this. More than happy to take the questions, but if they are technical questions, Tom Evans is with us to take any technical questions. So happy to receive any questions at this particular time.
Can I have a seconder for the report?
Happy to second.
Thank you. Any questions for anybody, please? Councillor David Phillips.
Thank you, Chairman. I would admit that I haven't read the whole of this 500, every line of this 500-page report. I don't know whether that would preclude me from voting on it or not if I haven't read everything. I think I understand enough of it. However, I would like to draw attention to page 703. I have read that far. In which my colleagues and I noticed that the a site in our ward is still listed as housing, which we thought had been designated as some other use. I understand that is, Cabinet Member, I understand that that is the existing report, which is now to be amended following consultation. Could you give us, and perhaps any other member here or members of the public who see something that they think is something else still contained in the designation it had before, that this consultation will allow for submissions to get the changes made, to put the matters in the order that colleagues and perhaps members of the public would think, you know, to get it back to things that they are in to show one thing when actually it's going to be actually something else.
Yeah, Councillor Phillips, I can get some reassurances there that that document you're talking about is existing LDP, and yes, there are areas that are highlighted for housing. There will be a full consultation going forward on all new available sites, and that will be in an in-depth, not just members, but public consultation as well. I'll give that reassurance that we will be looking at each and every individual site going forward.
Tom Evans, did you wish to speak, please? Or
well, I think the Councillor Hopkins has made the relevant point there that you know, it doesn't necessarily follow that existing allocations are taken forward into the new plan, and every single ward and residents of every single ward will have that opportunity to reflect on and comment on whether or not existing allocations continue to be sensible or not for future development. And in some instances, it will be a case of taking that allocation out if the circumstances have changed.
thank you, Tom. Councillor Lyndon Jones, did you put your hand up, please?
No.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Stuart Rice.
Chair, just a very quick point. In general, it's quite a long report, as we well know. I mean, it's longer than most of Tolstoy's novels as a summons today. And I think usually back in the past, back in 2008 to 12, we'd always have the budget on a meeting unto itself. I'm not particularly saying anything about the virtues of the report or not, but it's quite a serious subject, the LDP. And I would suggest maybe hopefully in the future, even though we have, I know, had a briefing on it, that this would be carried on a separate meeting, and maybe perhaps we could have a separate budget meeting in the future as we used to have in the old days.
I would say it's quite unfortunate the timing of this, but what I hope is the next LDP will last longer than this, because it took longer to talk about it than actually we spent 10 years talking about it and 4 years actually delivering it. So hopefully it won't be back in front of us too soon. But what I would say, I do tend to agree, if we can get it on a separate, I got no issues looking that forward. I'm still here.
Councillor Downing.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. As Councillor Phillips pointed out, I'm not sure if War and Peace is smaller than the LDP. But one of my concerns is that we're talking about a replacement LDP as we go forward up until 2026. But what I wouldn't like to see is the sites that we have agreed in the LDP changing in form. Like I've said before, we adopted a criteria or agreed a criteria in 2019. And what I wouldn't like to see is us going back through the same sites and changing them, especially the strategic sites, which took a long time to do. So I am concerned that we don't change what, because we could miss out the paragraph or two, like I did on the first LDP. But these are the things I don't like to see change when we spend ages agreeing to something, and now you're going to try and change it in 2 years.
Want to respond, Councillor Hopkins?
I've got nothing to add. I don't disagree with that in any shape or form, and actually, but no, I would refer that to Tom. In reality, I think what we will be going forward is, okay, the LDP itself now is, thing, but we still be using it until a new one is adopted. I think we're going to go to Welsh Government to ask permission to consider referencing the old LDP until such one we got a new one in place.
Tom, did you want to come back in, please?
Yeah, I think that's important to highlight in terms of the extant LDP continuing to have relevance going forward for determining planning applications. That will continue to be the case during the process of producing a new plan. Members should have confidence in that regard. And in terms of the member's question about changes to existing designations and criteria policies and site specifics, that has to be done on a case-by-case basis and a site-by-site basis, because the facts are that in certain instances circumstances have changed. Earlier, when I gave the presentation earlier in the week, I gave the example of flood risk designations, and the national policy has changed in that regard, and there are more extensive designations now in terms of areas subject to flood risk, with new criteria, in particular climate change forecasts being built into those forecasts. So almost inevitably there are wider areas affected. So where sites are affected by those designations, it is only right that we revisit those and change those allocations. So we must do a thorough process of sense checking those policies and those allocations against the latest available evidence.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, it's been moved and seconded, so I need to go to the vote, and the recommendations are on page 428. So can I have a show of hands for, please? Okay, if you can take your hands down online. Anybody against? Any abstentions? Been carried. Okay. The next item is item 18, and that's membership committees, and it's over to Councillor Hopkins.
Nothing to add. We're just carrying one vacancy on that particular one, so nothing to add.
Thank you. Okay.
Just formally move.
Yeah, seconded. Thank you, Councillor Lewis. Can I take a vote? Anybody for? Anybody against? Just to see what you're under, put two things in. Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. That's carried. We move on to item 19, which is councillors' questions. And the first question is from Councillor Wendy Lewis, Fiona, and it's the response of the cabinet member. Any supplementaries, Councillor Lewis?
No supplementaries.
Thank you. Question 2 is from Councillor Chris Evans.
Yeah, just a couple of brief clarifications. In the answer, it's you say that PR can result in unstable coalition administrations, but you can also say that the opposite is true. For example, in the Netherlands, Germany, and the Scandinavian countries, we've seen some of the best economic and social performance of any countries in Western Europe. The second point is that first past the post isn't really a defence against people with extreme views being elected. Currently in Westminster, what we're seeing is people demonising the trans community and demonising refugees. Some of these sort of views that are coming out that I feel are extreme. What we have is people trading on the idea of stopping small boats, and the only small boats are actually stopping is the ones containing our tomatoes.
Yeah, I would agree in some respects, but I'll accept the question and give you a written response on that.
I'm sure the cabinet member Presiding Member, to the Cabinet Member, and I think most people in this chamber would agree that the first past the post has produced a parliament in this country at the moment, which is one of the most extreme that we've ever had. So I look forward to the day when we have proportional representation, where we want to have the extremes that we currently have in Parliament. And I'm sure the membership across the chamber would agree with that.
Councillor Hawley. Councillor Stewart.
Chair, I just really just wanted to add to Councillor Hopkins's original response. I think I, as much as anybody, wants to see the back of this government, but you don't change the voting system just because you don't like the party. You change people's minds and you make sure the electorate mobilises in order to change the government. The concerns that Councillor Hopkins outlined in his response are the ones that we should be very guarded against and very cautious about in local government, because when you're talking about parliamentary boundaries and parliamentary votes, you're talking about several thousand votes in a constituency, whereas in a ward, it could be as little as 100 or so that can get you elected. And that is very much in the gift of ultra right-wing groups, some of which members in this chamber have been targeted by as part of the campaign. So I would absolutely urge caution on that, because you might be going from one system you don't like to another system that's even worse.
Okay, we move on to. Oh, sorry, David.
Would the leader agree that the opposition is being a little disingenuous in claiming that First Past the Post elected the current Conservative government? Has he forgotten that they only got into power with the support of the Liberal Democrats, who were then crushed by the Conservatives? And had they not joined the Conservatives wouldn't be in power now.
Okay, question 3 is from. Sorry.
Happy to agree that, yeah.
Hang on.
I don't know if the
Councillor
Uplands
McKettrick.
group, I don't know if the Uplands group wanted anything. I can see there's a number of properties in that list as well. It's just to clarify, is there any sort of plans for disposal of sites in Singleton? So I'm thinking specifically of the Swiss Cottage and Home Farm.
If I could just.
Sorry, have I skipped ahead? I didn't mean to.
Sorry, if I could just come in on, particularly on the Swiss Cottage, I believe there is a lease arrangement in place already on the for Swiss Cottage. So I can say, yes, there is a lease agreement already in place on that particular one.
Thank you, Councillor. Question 3 is from Councillor Peter May. He's left. So Councillor Rice, do you want to come in, please?
Just a very simple, quick follow-up question to this one. What consultation has taken place with local members or members of neighbouring wards and the local population in those areas for these?
What I would say, if there's any particular one that you would that I've got concerns with, but as far as I'm concerned, local members have been consulted on all these issues, and I know that we work very closely with lots of these football groups and all these sports groups and friends of. So in my opinion, was that all members have had consultation on all these particular issues? Sorry, all these leases.
Councillor Hopkins. The next question is from Councillor Fiona Gordon. Any supplementaries? No. Okay, question 5 is from Councillor Jeff Jones. Okay. Question 6 is from Councillor Leslie Walton.
No supplementaries, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Question 7 is from Councillor Linda James. No. Question 8 is from Councillor Francesca O'Brien.
Thank you, Chair. I was just wondering, thank you for the response, but we were just wondering if we're going to be notified of where those speed cushions will be relocated, please. Thank you.
Yeah, you. It's not your ward. Yeah, well, so following the speed. Yeah, no. So let me finish. So sorry. Following the speed survey for the follow-up for after the road has been resurfaced and before any additional traffic calming goes back down, there will be consultation with the ward members.
Okay, thank you. Question 9 is from, oh, sorry, Councillor David James.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Yeah, could the Cabinet Member give me a breakdown of the spending on the Safe Route scheme in the Gowden ward, please?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Jenkins. The scheme in Gowerton was actually a bid to Welsh Government to provide safe routes in Gowerton via traffic calming, control crossing, junction improvement, and provision of new footways. And the total package was 310,000, of which the Gowerton ward member, Councillor Jones, contributed £30,000 capital fund allocation and £15,000 from a community budget. The 45k was seed funding to show local buy-in to Welsh Government in order to obtain the overall bid, which included the traffic calming.
Thanks for that. So I'm just trying to clarify. So would the Cabinet Member agree that if the ward member's community budget contribution and capital allocation was a key part of the overall scheme, could it have been put to other uses like the park, Gowden Park?
Yeah, I would. In fact, almost half the wards in Swansea decided to put their first allocation of capital funding into play areas alongside increased community budget donations. The funds could have very much all gone into Gowerton play area if that was what the ward member decided at the time. But instead of the £36,000 investment, Gowerton Park could have potentially had over 80k.
The next question is from Councillor Mike Lewis.
Not a supplementary, but just to say that the photographic evidence of what the CWAT teams are doing has been very well received throughout different wards. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. The question 10 is from Councillor Peter May. So Councillor Stewart, right.
Thank you, Cabinet Member, for the response there, and also thank you to ATG for their additional information they supplied to the Wales Online yesterday in an article which gave more details. Does the Cabinet Member know what the top price is for a ticket in the Swansea Arena at the moment, including fees?
It all depends on the show. Obviously, there's different events take place there. You have conferences, you have shows of varying degrees. Some of them are for full capacity, some of them are not as big a name, and so therefore they vary. And that is a matter for the management of the Ambassador Theatre Group to judge their audience, to get the return that they think is valuable on the audience that each show will attract.
Thank you, Councillor. Question 11 is from Councillor Lyndon Jones.
Yeah, no supplementary.
Thank you. Question 12 is from Councillor Andrew Williams.
No supplementaries.
Thank you. Question 13 is from Councillor Kevin Griffiths. Thank you. Question 14 is from Councillor Mike White. Thank you. Question 15 is from Councillor Bev Hopkins or Mike Lewis. Mike, are you going to take it?
Yeah, no supplementaries on that one. Thank you.
Thank you. Question 16 is from Councillors Mike White.
No supplementaries.
Okay. The next one is from you as well, Mike. 17.
No supplementaries, Chair.
Thank you. That's the end of the questions, and that's the end of the council meeting. Thank you all for your attendance and your patience. Thank you.
Good night. Then, Jan.
All right.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you.